Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. On today's episode, we got a good one. We are going to be taking this 2021 Mustang Mach-E on a 30-mile stretch of highway to test Ford's hands-free BlueCruise mode and see just how good it actually is. We're going to test it to see how well it stays in the lane, how well it takes lane transitions, and see if it decides to just shut off when it feels like it. So we're going to go ahead and test that out, so stick with us. We're coming right back at you. All right, everybody, well, welcome back. So let's discuss a few things before we actually get on the road. So we are sitting in a 2021 Mustang Mach-E. This was a November of 21 build, delivered in January is when I picked it up from the dealer. It has the latest version of Ford's power-up as far as today, which is the March, what is today, the 5th. If I check for updates, it just says we are the most up-to-date at this point. And that's to say that we have the latest update, but it's at least to say that we have the latest update that my car can have. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go out on a stretch of highway. It's a 30-mile stretch, so 30 miles one way, 30 miles the other way, so 60 miles round trip, and we're going to be testing BlueCruise's hands-free mode. So we're going to see how well it does on this 30-mile stretch one way and then 30 miles back the other way, and we're going to see how well it, number one, stays in the lane. Number two, we're going to see how well it works with transitions. So that means off ramps and then on ramps for incoming traffic to see if that messes with the hands-free mode as well. So we're going to test that as well. So we're going to stay in the right-hand lane as much as we possibly can for this test so we can try to see that as much as possible. And then we're also going to see if it happens to disengage itself at times and what it does when it disengages and why it disengages, and we'll try to figure out why that is when it's doing it. But let's get on the road and then we'll talk more about this test and what we're expecting from it. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what we're doing here. So we are getting onto the highway now. We're getting on about the middle part of that 30-mile stretch. So what we're going to do first is we are going to go down the south way onto the highway. And just so you know, this is Route 31 here in South Carolina. It's really close to the east coast of South Carolina, just a few miles from the beach. And so this is a major highway in and out of the Myrtle Beach area for a lot of tourists and stuff like that. It's a way to get from north to south very easily. But it's a relatively new highway in the sense where part of it's only been around for a few years, and then other parts have been around for about 10 years, and other parts have been around for, maybe 20 years or so. So it's a relatively dynamic highway in the sense where it's constantly changing and it's constantly being added to, and so that will change the way the lanes are as far as the lines, the how well the lanes are paved, and so on and so forth. So we're going to get on the middle of the highway roughly, and we're going to go south first. So we're going to head south, go all the way to the bottom, and then we are going to U-turn and come all the way back, do the 30-mile stretch north, and then of course we'll have to come back and do the half on the way back to basically where we started. And we're just going to see exactly what happens with the vehicle on hands-free and see how well it performs in that regard. And then what we're going to do is, this is just test one, and we're going to do more tests with this vehicle as Ford releases more BlueCruise updates for it and see how well it changes the performance or the capability of hands-free. And so this is just test one. Let's give this a shot today, see how well it does, and then we'll have a good baseline for the future as far as that goes. Now, this is not a range test. This is not an efficiency test. We are literally just going to get down the highway, stay in the right-hand lane as much as we possibly can, and just see what happens, basically. That's all we're here to see. I have the camera right above my head, so you can actually see the screen when it's in BlueCruise mode, and then you'll see when it comes out of BlueCruise mode as well. And then you also see the road ahead of me to kind of get an idea of exactly what's going on. But of course, I will narrate that as much as I possibly can. So here we are, we're getting onto the highway right now. So once again, this is sort of like the middle of the highway. So we're just heading south for now, U-turning, coming back north. So I went ahead, as we're on the on-ramp, I went ahead and just engaged the BlueCruise. Now we're not in hands-free yet, we're just in standard BlueCruise mode that you can get on pretty much any road. So let's go ahead and see how well it transitions as we get onto the highway. Let's bump up our speed here. And we gotta merge over one more lane. All right, so cruise control set for 65. I'm in the right-hand lane. Hands-free has just activated, so we are now capable of just leaving our hands off the wheel. Of course, I'm going to keep my hands on the wheel just a little bit, but I'm not going to cause the vehicle to jump out of hands-free mode for any reason. Another reason why we want to stay in the right-hand lane is because if I have to switch lanes, it disables hands-free for that couple seconds that I have to switch lanes. And of course, once again, the right-hand lane being the transition lane for on-ramps and off-ramps, that'll give us a good idea of whether or not, you know, it will stay in the lines that it should be, or if it's going to veer off with the right-hand line. But we'll see as we go. So here we are, just cruising down the right-hand lane. And I'll update you as we get to certain parts of the highway and as, you know, things progress. Just to go over a couple other things, it's a beautiful clear day outside. The sun has finally come out. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, so the sun's fairly high up in the sky already, so we shouldn't have any issues with the sun coming through the windshield and causing any issues with the hands-free mode, blocking the cameras, so on and so forth. So we should be pretty good as far as that goes. It's nice weather outside, about 60 degrees right now, so I don't foresee any issues as far as that. The traffic's pretty light. It's a Saturday morning, and you know, hopefully we won't have any disruptions during this test here. So it's pretty clear the road. So let's talk about my first impressions real quick. Now, I've owned this car for about a month and a half, so I've used hands-free quite a bit, just not consistently on this road as much as I am going to do today. Now, how well does it stay in the center lane? Very well, actually. It does a very good job of keeping the car centered just down the two stripes, and it does have some moments of, you know, adjusting itself back and forth, but other than that, it's nothing I would be concerned with. I feel like the car is very confident in staying straight, going straight at least, but we're gonna see. So we're coming up to a transition here where we have a left exit off the highway. We also have a right exit off the highway. So we're gonna see what that does in this situation. So will it know to not go to the right for the exit? Is it going to disable hands-free? Let's find out right now. Okay, so we are coming up on the transition now. So right now we're in 3 lanes wide. The left lane is an exit. The right 2 lanes continue, but then this right lane will eventually veer off. But this right lane is going to eventually veer off into an exit here. So let's take a look at how it works. It's still in hands-free. It hasn't adjusted. This is a bit of a turn for it. Not bad. A little bit shaky. Oh, okay, now hands-free is shut off. Okay, so it wants me to continue with this turn here. Now I'm not actually doing anything. It's still in just BlueCruise doing its own thing. And this is where it gets a little bit flaky back and forth. Okay, so hands-free has just resumed. That van is merging next to me, so I'm gonna go ahead and just bump up my speed here to get ahead of them. And hands-free, whoa, that was a weird transition. Okay, so that on-ramp transition was a little bit weird because the line was so far to the right, I think the car thought it had to be over there, but then the line started shifting in, and the car was all of a sudden kind of got thrown itself around a little bit there. That was a little weird, and it was in hands-free during that too. That wasn't just regular BlueCruise, so that was a little bit weird. So that's one little weird thing that happened. One disengagement so far at the 501 intersection there. So let's just continue to go and see how well it does on the next one. So now this is the newest section of Highway 31 here in South Carolina. So we are in like the newest part of it on the south end. The oldest part is up on the north end of it. And you know, that might be a little different as far as the lines. Road structure might be a little different, so we'll have to see how hands-free works when we get to the older side. This is the newer side. Everything's sort of fresh and new. The lines are fairly new. So I don't foresee any major issues on this end. Plus, there's not many exits on this side, and the exits are actually done quite well. So not many really concerns on this side. We'll have to see when we start going in the opposite direction. So I guess this begs the question of, if it's hands-free mode, is it really hands-free mode? Okay, well, actually, whoa. So there was a lane transition right there, and it sort of went to the right for a second there, and then it stopped. So here's the exit right here, and it's not taking the exit. It's not like it's thinking that, but it did have this little bit of a sway to the right during that dotted line transition there. But no, overall, it's been good so far. So we're cool there. But this begs the question of, you know, hands-free. I mean, it is claiming hands-free. I mean, not even Tesla claims hands-free. The only people that do this that I know of is Ford, of course, and GM with their Super Cruise. So, you know, really, what are we looking at here? I mean, they're claiming hands-free. I mean, they're saying you could take your hands off of the wheel. Obviously, you have to stay attentive. That's why we have eye tracking in this vehicle. So this way, if you do take your eyes off the road, or you move your head to the side, it will eventually just start yelling at you that, hey, get your eyes back on the road. It's hands-free, not eyes-free. But yeah, like, it was weird. It was in hands-free mode. My hands were, you know, still ready, but it was a weird sway back and forth there. So that's a little unnerving sometimes. But anyway, let's keep going and see. So that was just an on-ramp right there for people. No problems whatsoever. It just kind of blew right by it. Didn't even bother thinking that the lines had changed to the right. But there were dotted lines, so it wasn't really anything to be concerned of there. All right, so we're going over this bridge now. So this is where sometimes the road can look a little weird because of that. And the lines have this weird, like, black line after the white line. It's almost like they redid them for some reason. I'm not sure what that was all about. It's doing okay. I got a car coming up on my left, so I'm going to try to be ready in case this decides to swerve a little bit. All right, it seems to be doing perfectly fine. The one thing I do notice about the BlueCruise is that it sometimes has a tendency of, like, when you're going around this sweeping turn, it does this tendency of, like, this little tiny incremental turns to do one big turn. So sometimes you just watch the wheel doing this. And that's a little bit weird because, you know, a human usually just holds the wheel into a position that kind of keeps the car stable around that turn. So this doesn't really have an ability to keep the wheel situated in a spot to just kind of go around the turn perfectly. It kind of has to do this little incremental adjustments there. Okay, so far so good. We are coming up to the end of this highway now. This highway just ends in just a little bit. So we're gonna see, you know, I'm in the right-hand lane, so we're obviously gonna go to the right exit. There's a left exit as well. But we're just gonna see, you know, what the car does and see how long the hands-free will go for before it just decides to shut off. So speed limit just dropped to 50 because we're coming up on the exit. The car automatically adjusted down for that, which is really cool. So here we are, we're getting, okay, so it just shut off. Keep your hands on the wheel. Just about to the point where the line was splitting was right when hands-free decided to say, no more, that's it, we are done. So I'm gonna go ahead and manually take over for this next bit until we can turn around, get back on the highway again. All right, U-turn is done. So we are heading back to 31, getting on northbound side now, and do the same thing. We're gonna see how well it does all those transitions on the northbound side, and it's gonna be more interesting when we get to the north side of this road. So that'll be really cool to see the differences between how well it worked on the newer side of this highway versus the older side. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna activate our BlueCruise now as we are on the on-ramp, and we'll see when it kicks into hands-free mode. Okay, so standard BlueCruise has finally kicked on after we got around that sharp turn on the on-ramp. So now we are going to see when hands-free. So that side of the highway just merged in, and now we are in hands-free mode, and somehow it decided that the speed limit was 35. That was weird. Okay, so here we are back in the right-hand lane, waiting for hands-free. There's hands-free. So we are good to go. Let me dodge a couple of these debris in the road here. Okay, so back on hands-free. Let's go ahead and see what happens. So just to reiterate, this is a 2021 Mustang Mach-E standard battery rear-wheel drive premium trim that we're driving here today. Not that most of that makes any difference when it comes to the hands-free mode, but figured in case anybody was curious, that's what we're currently driving in. Went under that bridge without any issues too. I've always had issues with phantom braking in some cars with the cruise control, the dynamic cruise control. This car, I haven't had that issue yet. It hasn't phantom braked on me a single time since I've owned it, which is really cool, because that was always a concern I had with my Mazda. It was always just phantom brake whenever it felt like it, especially going underneath bridges like that. All right, so we're going back over that bridge as we did before. It's taken this perfectly fine. We are coming up on a exit here, so there is going to be an off-ramp on the right. Of course, I have a vehicle coming up behind me, so I wonder if they're going to get off on this ramp as well. So let's see how well it does with this. Hands ready just in case. Dotted lines for the transition there. No, it was fine. It didn't even think about it that time. So yeah, so that was good. Went right past it, didn't even think twice about trying to, you know, change its direction at all. So that worked out really well. So we continue on. All right, so we have two on-ramps on the right-hand side now, both with dotted lines, and no worries, no issues. I didn't think so. So even though the solid line transitioned into a dotted line, there was another lane off to my right because of it. It didn't really bother it at all. Nice Model S going the other way. So yeah, here we go. So here's a merge lane on our right. Merge lane is going to start moving over into our lane, which means we're going to end up into some solid lines here. See if there's any hiccup. Nope, didn't think so. All right, very good. So this car is doing well. It's really not having any issues with all the little minor changes on the road. And we'll just keep going and see what's happening here. Also, I'd like to point out that wind is minimal today. There really hasn't been any wind today this whole day. You can see the trees are not swaying or moving at all. I mean, if anything, we have a very small, maybe 5-mile-per-hour wind, especially when you're in the middle of a highway like this. So you might have a little bit of a gust, but I haven't noticed any wind. There hasn't been any noise coming from the wind pushing up against the vehicle. So none of that is going to affect this drive today as far as the car keeping in the lines or swaying or anything like that. So I think we're in good shape here. We're still going forward, right-hand lane, just keeping it cruising in BlueCruise. Good name for it. All right, so we're coming up behind a vehicle right now. They're going a little slower than us. I think we're just going to cruise behind them though. I'm not going to push them or try to go around them at all, because we're coming up on the 501 intersection again, like we did before, where we had that little bit of a jostling with the wheel there, and it kind of got a little nervous there. And then after that, then it kicked off hands-free. So we're coming back up. Oh, they're moving over anyway. So we're gonna end up we'll keep our speed around 60 miles an hour through here. The speed limit's like 55. So we're gonna stay in the right-hand lane. There's a left exit again, a right exit again, and a pretty big, it's okay. So BlueCruise hands-free turned off. So we are back on the wheel, and we are going to go ahead and just take over for this. So I guess it doesn't like these very large or tight turns. I think it likes just the very small, you know, very wide turns more than it likes these pretty deep pitched turns. So I mean, even just the regular BlueCruise, it does well with it. I mean, it does get a little choppy at times, but I mean, it doesn't really have any issues negotiating it. And hopefully in the future Ford will put something in where it'll slow the car down automatically if it feels like it's not comfortable with a certain turn and just adjust itself accordingly. All right, hands-free back on. All right, so we're back on 3 lanes wide. So we are back on now, so we're gonna keep going, and I don't foresee anything exciting happening in the next about 5 or 6 miles, because we're gonna go past the part of the highway that we got on, which we didn't see any issues, but I will point out once we get past that point. Okay, so as we're on this very straight part of the highway here, I'm watching the steering wheel, and I can see where it's doing this very minute adjustments to keep the car in the lane, which is really good to see. It doesn't ever get to the point where it starts to like continue and get worse and worse, and then it doesn't know how to like fix itself, basically, where you start getting that, you know, bouncing back and forth thing. It seems very stable, very confident in itself on a straight part of the road, so that's good to see. I'm not seeing any weird you know, back and forth. There's a little bit right there, but that was good. It just kind of stabilized itself back in the lane. Not to say that the road is perfectly straight, because it's not. The road does have some minor bends to it as you're driving, even though it looks relatively straight. But yeah, so it does great in situations like this. If you could stay straight ahead and just keep going, this car will just sit in there all day long and do its thing. So that's really good to see. I mean, you know, Ford did a good job of getting it this far, but I'm really interested to see where they go in the future. Small right-hand sweeping turn here. Let's see how well it does. Wheels adjusting, minute adjustments going through the turn. That it looks perfect. Very nice. Yeah, that was good. All right, we made it through that turn perfectly fine. So, yeah, no worries there. It seems to take those turns great without any lack of confidence. It doesn't seem to have any type of swaying to the steering wheel. Really good. Here comes a left sweeping turn, about the same as the one we just did. Some shadows coming off of the trees onto the road from the sun, so that doesn't really seem to affect it at all. Yeah, just small adjustments just to keep it self-centered. Here's some rough road here. Yeah, it doesn't bother it at all. Good. We keep going. Moving on. All right, so coming up on where our starting point. Well, okay, it did it again. That white line that starts to transition to the exit, it pulled just a little bit to the right, and then it kind of said, oh, wait, no, that's not the lane. This is the lane. And it kind of pulls itself back. So there's the exit. It's going off. Oh, I'm gonna hold the wheel just. Okay, no, we were good. It pulled to the right just a little bit, as if it thought that's where we needed to go, but we didn't. So it eventually fixed itself. That was okay. It wasn't an aggressive turn, so it wasn't like I got scared or anything from it happening, but it was something that made me think, well, that seems a little weird, you know, like the car kind of just starts turning to the right a little bit. But no, overall, it did okay. We're up to a slower car than we're going, but that's okay. We're just gonna cruise behind them. It doesn't matter. Once again, this is not an efficiency test. It's not a range test. We're not trying to push the car to any limits other than hands-free capability. So it doesn't matter how fast or slow we go at this point, as long as we stay within, you know, the speed limit. We're up to 65, so we're doing fine. We'll be fine with this. On ramp right there on the right-hand side, not even a problem. Just dotted lines changed from solid to dotted, back to solid. It didn't hesitate at all during that process, so that looked really good as well. Now this is where it's going to start getting interesting, because as we're starting to move on the north end of this highway, this is where we're going to start seeing some older parts of the road. The lines might not be as defined as they were on the newer side, and we're also going to see some more aggressive turns, some different type of changes to the elevation of the highway, on top of the fact that we're going to see a lot of different on-ramps and off-ramps. So we'll just see how that works and how that goes from here. So still cruising along, doing about 60, 64 it says right now, behind this car. They probably have their cruise control set for 65. They're probably just off by a mile per hour. And nothing really too much coming up right now. Probably in the next mile or two, we're gonna have some other turns coming up, and we'll see how it does at those. And once again, just a friendly reminder that if you're a Mach-E owner, an EV owner, anything like that, make sure you hit that subscribe button to the channel. You know, I do a lot of work on this channel, especially now with the Mach-E being, you know, in my inventory of cars, if you will, where, you know, I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on this. So continue to follow my channel, subscribe to it, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. You know, stick around because I have a lot more videos coming up, and you know, it's going to get interesting in the future as Ford starts to develop this vehicle more and more and more and pushes out more updates for this vehicle. We're going to see a big improvement in BlueCruise, number one, and we're also going to see a big improvement just in general of the car. Hoping that they support these cars for a long time, similar to how Tesla does it. And we're going to get these updates. Large left turn here. Oh, look at that. It just kicked off a BlueCruise hands-free. So now we're just on standard BlueCruise. It's yelling at me to put my hands on the wheel, so I will abide by its laws. And we're going to get around this turn here. Let's see when hands-free turns back on. And there it is. Hands-free is back on. I'm going to let go. Let's see what happens. A little bit of an overcorrection there for the turn, but it's okay. All right, so it fixed itself. But yeah, coming from normal BlueCruise to hands-free BlueCruise, it sort of did this overcorrection, but then it adjusted real quick, and it didn't adjust abruptly where, you know, it felt weird. It was a pretty good adjustment. Small right-hand turn here. We're going around. It doesn't seem... Right-hand exit, solid line to dotted line. Doesn't seem to be having any effect this time, so that looks okay. All right, so coming up to a section here where we have an on-ramp right off to our right that's going to start merging in. That on-ramp lane directly feeds into an off-ramp for another major highway corridor here. So it doesn't appear that we have any traffic coming from behind us merging on, which is cool. And it looks like we're pretty much good as far as traffic goes. We're slowing down just a bit, 63, 64 miles per hour. Right-hand lane is still open for the exit. Car doesn't seem to be caring too much about that. Back into the major part of the highway. Small correction there by the wheel. Still correcting slightly. Going into a right-hand sweep. And no, we seem to be pretty solid. So, pretty good. You know, it's just little things like that where the car is going to start to adjust a little bit. I mean, I'd love to see those go away completely, but I mean, other than that, I mean, that was pretty normal. I mean, I feel like overall this has been relatively safer than a human driver, depending on how distracted they are. But yeah, pretty good. On ramp right off to our right hand side, solid line, going into a dotted line again. No care in the world. Yeah, pretty good. Oh, small correction there as we went under the bridge. Don't think it had anything to do with the bridge, but just the timing of it. Right-hand lane is ending. Okay, so the lane got wider there for a second, and it didn't seem like it really cared too much about the lane widening for that on-ramp. So that was pretty good to see. Another on-ramp on our right-hand side. Now it's a busy intersection. Right-hand lane is now open with a dotted line, and we're not seeing any changes. The car doesn't seem to care too much about that either, so that's good to see. So we're about half an hour into this now. It's about 9:30, and you know, so far I feel pretty impressed by, you know, what we're seeing, what we're looking at here. So that's good. I mean, Ford has this down pretty well. I wish I could have seen it earlier in the builds, you know, maybe a year ago, to see how well hands-free worked. But honestly, I don't even think they had hands-free available to a lot of Mustang Mach-E owners. And in fact, I think there's still a lot of Mustang Mach-E owners that don't even have hands-free yet. They're still waiting for the software updates to have it. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, I'm one of the small percentage of people. Oh, look at this small transition around this left turn here. See, that's what I was talking about before. It does this little small adjustments, small adjustments. It's still going left. Small adjustments, small adjustments. It's not exactly how I would take this turn, but it's not terrible. It's not abrupt. It's, you know, it's not swaying the vehicle at all. So overall, I don't really see too much of an issue with that, but hopefully they can get that narrowed down quite a bit. But like I was saying before, you know, a lot of people still don't have hands-free BlueCruise yet, which is a shame in my opinion. I mean, Ford really should have been pushing that out earlier, late last year, and got a lot of those people onto, you know, the hands-free bandwagon. I was very lucky to have my car build include the BlueCruise hands-free, so that was really nice. Coming up on a pretty tough right turn here. Let's see how it takes it. Nope, off of hands-free. Okay, so we are going manual here. BlueCruise still activated. It's still keeping me within the lanes, but it's definitely swinging out to the left a little bit. It's definitely not as confident now. Oh yeah, look at that. All right, so we're gonna adjust slightly for the car to make sure we don't swerve out into the lane here. Hands-free back on. I'm gonna let go. And pretty good there. Minor adjustments to keep itself stabilized in the lane again. And then we continue forward. Another sweeping left-hand turn here. Looks like it's doing okay. We do have some people on the side of the road, so I'm actually just going to take over for a second here just to get us around these people. We don't want to put anybody in danger. Fixing a flat tire, unfortunately. All right, back over to the right-hand lane. Back to hands-free. And right there. Okay, so we're back to hands-free mode. Still behind the same car as we were before. Doing the same speed, about 64, 65. Coming up on another exit here. Right-hand exit lane is coming up in about 3, 2, 1. Solid line to dotted line. Car didn't seem to mind it all that much. Exit lane is still available. And it is now closed off, going to a very faded solid line here. And then back to a regular solid line. Car had a minor adjustment there, but really nothing I would be concerned of. That was pretty typical. On-ramp coming up on our right-hand side. Faded solid lines to dotted lines. Car doesn't seem to mind all that much. Merge lane is closing, going from the dotted lines, closing down into a solid line. Car didn't mind all that much at all, so that was good. Good. A couple miles from the end of this side of the highway. This is where this ends, and it splits off into 2 different sections. So we're gonna stay in the right-hand lane, take the right-hand exit, make a U-turn, get back on, and then we're gonna start going the other way. It looks like somebody got pulled over. This is why you don't exceed the speed limit all that much, because that'll ruin your weekend right there. So we got 1 mile to the exit. We'll see how it does transitioning from hands-free down to its normal BlueCruise lane centering system here, and we'll go from there. We'll see how far before the exit it actually decides to make that determination. And the other thing that bothers me a little bit is it doesn't really have any type of notification to let you that it's going from BlueCruise hands-free, shutting off to just, you know, standard BlueCruise there. There's no notification. It literally just, the blue screen goes from blue to just back to its standard, like, black background screen. And that's it. They really need to make, like, a noise, a sound, just any type of notification to be like, you're turning off. Like, we're coming down to it. Here comes the exit right here, about 1,000 feet, maybe a little less. Speed limit goes down to 40 here because of the off-ramp. Hands-free just shut off, so we are back into standard BlueCruise, and we are taking this exit. Oh, it just said canceled, so obviously it doesn't see the lines well at all at this point. Which that's okay. I mean, it's an off-ramp. You should be taking this manually anyway. You should never rely on the vehicle to take this ramp here. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna go full manual here. And then we got to go ahead and find ourselves a U-turn and head back the other way for the last section, the last leg of this test, and see how well it does there. All right, so we are on the north end of Highway 31. Made a U-turn. We are now going to start heading back onto 31, going southbound. About halfway mark is our goal to end this test. And then we'll kind of talk about what we've experienced and what we've seen today. And then when the next big BlueCruise update gets released, we're going to go ahead and do the same test again, same exact variables involved, and just see how much different it is. So here we are getting onto the on-ramp here. A person on a bicycle. That's probably not a good place to be riding your bike. Okay, so I've initiated BlueCruise here, and we are rolling up our speed limit here. For some reason, it thinks the speed limit's 30 here. It must catch it off of a road around here, but we're getting onto a highway. The speed limit's 65, and it will adjust there in just a second. Waiting for hands-free to kick in. BlueCruise has just kicked on. Waiting for hands-free mode. I'm gonna start moving over. It just kicked me down to 40 miles an hour. Thank you. That was not what I wanted. Okay, back on hands-free, and it finally adjusted back up to the 65 mile per hour speed limit. So we are going to squeeze over to the right-hand lane here in just a second. I think we're going to get ahead of this guy here because they seem to be going about the same speed as me. Okay, so we got our turn signal on, getting over into the right-hand lane. Going to adjust our speed accordingly here. Hands-free has kicked back on in the right-hand lane as we come up to another exit here off the Route 31 and see how it performs this. Got a couple cars around me, so I'm going to be a little more cautious about keeping my hands close to the wheel. Here comes the exit off the right-hand side. It's a sharp exit, not really an exit lane per se. Doesn't matter, didn't really care. White line on the right was very faded, so it was hard to see. Didn't phase it at all. Small right-hand turn coming up, going up elevation for this bridge here. Climbing elevation slightly on the bridge, over the bridge, no problems there. I'm going to slow down for this person trying to merge. All right, back at the immediately back into hands-free. The second I hit resume, it was like, boom, hands-free mode. So we just passed that off-ramp. We kind of missed it. Sorry about that. But I don't think it would have had any issue with it anyway. Back on the highway doing our speed here. Van in front of me is swerving back and forth, probably because it's got such a huge cap on the roof. Coming up to a slow car in front of us. We'll stay behind them just because we're not in a rush again. Unless they're gonna go really, really slow, then I might work our way around them, but I'll wait till a straight section of the highway before we do that. In the meantime, we have an overpass coming up, so we're gonna have a shadow put down on the road plus a right-hand turn. So let's see how hands-free works. Going into that right-hand turn, into the shadow, out to the shadow, no problems there. Another person got pulled over on the opposite side of the highway again. Man, the cops are busy today. Right-hand sweeping turn, pretty good. It was a pretty sharp turn too. It wasn't like a small turn, but it took it really well. We're down to 59 miles an hour, so we may have to adjust. Oh, hands-free just shut off. So it doesn't like this turn very much, so we're gonna go ahead and just assist it through here. Still in regular BlueCruise here. Okay, back onto hands-free. And you can see as it goes through that turn, it kind of has this little bit of a I'm not so confident feeling about that. So that's a little upsetting, but let's go ahead and go for a pass here. Now we have time. We're only doing 60 in the right-hand lane. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and hit the turn signal. It goes out of hands-free. Move over a lane, we accelerate, go right into the middle lane. Hands-free is back on as of right now. That was pretty good. Unfortunately, we're behind a car that is not much faster at this point, so we'll have to just give this a minute or two. Going around a sweeping right-hand lane here. Now we're in the middle lane, which is pretty cool to see. I've never had issues with its confidence of passing vehicles. I do notice that if a vehicle does kind of pull into your lane just like a tire width, it tends to brake and for safety reasons. So that's pretty good. So it kept hands-free on this entire turn here. That's really good. Okay, so we continue to go straight at this point. I'm going to try to work my way back into the right-hand lane because we have some exits coming up here. Okay, back in the right lane, hands-free is off and back on now. Okay, good. So we are going on a straight here. There is a right-hand lane coming up that is an off-ramp. We'll see how it transitions from solid shoulder line here to the dotted line. Looks like it has a little bit of a wave to it too. Good. Good, it didn't really have an issue with that. Going over a slight hill here, going onto the right, going to a right turn, small right turn. No problems there, very good. And then we're increasing in elevation just slightly again, just to go over a highway and under a highway again. Pretty cool section of this road here. And small left turn here, takes it well. On ramp on my right hand side, solid line going to a dotted line. No real concerns. It handled that very well. Small adjustments right there as the dotted line started to widen the lane a little bit and then shrink back down to a solid line. We have a long on-ramp here for these people coming back onto this highway, so we got a big gap between. That gap is now starting to narrow down. They are merging in front of me and we are staying perfectly in our lane. Let's see how it does this section right here with the lane ending. Perfect. Very well done. Quick exit on the right, no lane. Doesn't care as if it doesn't even exist. Very good. Underneath that bridge, no phantom braking whatsoever. That's awesome to see. You know, like I was saying before, sometimes that phantom braking stuff, that scares you sometimes when it just decides to like, I'm gonna stop. And it's so scary when it happens, especially because you don't know what's going on. Number one, you're trying to assess the situation in a blink, and then you have the issue of, you know, is there a car behind you? Do I need to slam on the gas? Do I need to hit the brakes? Like, you don't know what's going on. Like, phantom braking is really something that needs to be adjusted. I know Teslas get affected by this quite often because they're going for a full camera system on their car. But thankfully I have not felt that with this car ever yet, which is good to see. But I know it all depends on the time of day and which way the sun is. Hands-free shut off on us going around this turn here, so we're going to put our hands into a little bit of input into the wheel here to help it around. Looks like we're coming up on some slower traffic in front of us, but let's just see how long we stay behind them for. I'm putting some input into the wheel because I can feel it shifting to the right. Hands-free, or shifting to the left, excuse me. Hands-free is back on now, and we are going straight again. So the van in front of me is dodging these recently filled in potholes. These have been a problem for a while now. I'm just letting the car do its thing. We're rolling over them pretty easily. Unfortunately, the car doesn't know how to go around those yet, but you know, hopefully in the future we'll see that type of technology. So just kind of cruising in this lane, minor adjustments. This really is the end of the drive right here. Oh, hitting all these potholes now, all the filled in potholes. There's a really bad section of this road. But really this is the end here. We don't really have much changes except for when we get off the highway just in a second here. You know, I gotta say, I'm impressed. I think that the hands-free is good. We don't really see many bad circumstances so far. That one transition was a little bit scary, the way that the car kind of just started swerving within the lane kind of abruptly. But I mean, other than that, I mean, if it turned off hands-free before that happened, I would be a little bit more accepting of it. But the fact that it was in hands-free when it occurred is a little bit scary. So I'm hoping to either A, fix the hands-free section there, or B, they maybe turn it off a little bit sooner than that. You know, once again, these maps are mapped out by 3D mapping companies that go out and they map the roads. You know, it's great as far as accuracy goes, but when things change, like they adjust roads, they adjust the lines, they repave, things changed, you know, the car may not see it the same way as it used to. So I hope they have contracts with these companies to go back out and redo them every, you know, 5 or 10 years. We're getting off this exit here, so we're going to go ahead and manually take the car into the dock. But yeah, so, you know, I just feel like there's a lot to improve on with this, both for safety and for, you know, just, well, let's make it hands-free. If you're saying that this road is a hands-free road, make the whole road hands-free. Like, that's the ultimate goal, right? Tesla's full self-driving, they're claiming it will be full self-driving. If that's true, I don't know. Hey, listen, I'm all for high goals and reaching for them, but, you know, let's take it back and maybe decide whether or not we have to rethink those procedures. Ford's method, and same with GM's method of mapping out the major highways and roads, makes sense because those are the roads that you're typically going to be cruising long amount of time on for, you know, trips, vacations, anything like that. So it makes sense to me why they would just do those major highways, and I doubt they'll ever do the smaller back roads, the 45 mile an hour and less. I don't think we'll ever see those in a hands-free mode, but, you know, maybe it'll happen eventually, and, you know, if there's enough demand for it. But yeah, that's all in the matter of time. So here we are sitting at the light, just about ready to get home here. And then when we get to the driveway, we'll go ahead and discuss what we saw today and what we felt was the ultimate goal here, or the ultimate baseline that we're going to see for the next update for BlueCruise, and see how much more confidence it can build on that next update. So let's go ahead and pull into the driveway, and we'll go from there. So we're back now. Let's go ahead and discuss a little bit before we end the video. So in straight lines, great confidence, very little steering wheel, you know, inputs coming from the wheel. It seems very confident, knows. Some turns are very good. You know, we have a very nice sweeping turn. The car seems very confident going around that sweeping turn. No problems there. Some turns we see that little bit of a, you know, a digging into the wheel of like this constant bouncing just to get around the turn. And that can be a little bit annoying, but it's not dangerously annoying. It's not like I'm afraid that it's doing that. So that's okay. Hands-free kicking off without notifications, a little bit weird. I think they really need to put that, especially when you're on a road where it's working and then it's off, and then it's working again and then it's off. Like, that should be adjusted. They really need to make a sound to tell you, hey, it's off. You know, put your hands back on the wheel. Because by the time it gets to the standard, like BlueCruise, and then you see it, or it starts actually chiming at you, you've already been in it for 10 or 15 seconds. So it really needs to warn you a little bit beforehand, before you get a little too confident in its ability to stay in hands-free. We saw that one transition that was a little weird. It was in hands-free. It was a relatively sharp turn. It was in hands-free, and yet it still seemed to get confused. I don't know if it was because it was the sharp turn that confused it, or because there was an off-ramp lane to the right that confused it. I'm not sure exactly what caused it to get confused, but either way, it got confused, and it did a pretty sharp maneuver that I wasn't too thrilled about. I actually did take over for a second there just to make sure. But other than that, I mean, I think it does a real good job. I think it stabilizes the car when you need it to just stay stabilized and going straight. It's definitely not as confident as Tesla's autopilot, though. I feel like Tesla's autopilot probably takes more chances on those turns, but it's just more confident in taking those turns. And I think that's a big difference, because with this lacking confidence, you have those sometimes those big jostles in the wheel, and you're kind of, you get a little nervous, whereas Tesla will typically stay pretty cool about situations like that. So, I'm not saying Tesla's better. I'm not saying that. I mean, this is hands-free. This is literally advertised as hands-free. I don't believe it should be hands-free. I think you still got to keep your hands, right there, just in case something was to happen. But I think overall, 90% of the time, I think it does a very good job. I think 90% of the time, I give it an 8 out of 10. That other 10% of the time, I give it like a 5 out of 10, just because it's just, notify me when things are going to change. Don't be confident. Don't tell me you're going to be confident when you're going to not be confident. And, maybe try to figure out a way to slow down the vehicle if it feels like it's going to start, really cutting at the wheel real hard. And that would be better for not only safety, but just going forward. So yeah, I think this was pretty cool. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you thought about this. Is this a technology you're interested in? Are you willing to buy a Ford product for its BlueCruise capability in its current state? That was a relatively easy highway for me to drive on for this car to handle, and it still had some snafus with it. But are you actually interested in this BlueCruise technology? Is this good enough along where you feel like you are willing to put yourself in a vehicle with it doing all of this? So yeah, leave in the comments below. Let me know what you think. If you already have a vehicle with BlueCruise, even if it's a Mach-E or something different, doesn't have to be, it could be a Ford F-150. I know they have BlueCruise. Let me know what you think of it, and are you really confident in its ability to, basically keep the car in a lane and confidently make those turns? Let me know what you think. And when Ford comes out with a BlueCruise update on this vehicle, we're doing that same route again, and that will be test 2. So today's test number 1, March of 2022, and the next update that comes out will be test 2, whenever that is, hopefully by, hopefully before summer, hopefully this spring, April, May. And then we'll give it another shot and see how much better Ford has made their BlueCruise. And is this going to be a Tesla Autopilot, competitor? Is it going to be full self-driving one day? Probably not. But it would be interesting to see where Ford goes with this and how far they're willing to take it. But anyway, let's cut off the video there. It's been a long drive. I'm tired. I'm going to go ahead and thank you very much for watching today's episode. If you found this interesting, if you found this helpful, hit the like button below. Hit subscribe if you are interested in further tests with the Ford hands-free BlueCruise technology feature that they're putting in their vehicles today. And of course, you could check us out on our website, techmotoring.com, on Twitter @techmotoring. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/techmotoring. I'd like to thank you again very much for watching today's episode. And remember, welcome to the future and welcome to Tech Motoring. And we'll see you on the next episode.